I want people to be able to say whatever they want, all right? I'm a big advocate of free speech. With that in mind, what they're saying in Hollywood right now and on the political left, all of that racial virtue signaling, it's starting to complicate, disrupt, and become a really bad thing in the lives of ordinary working Americans. This kind of garbage is actually harmful, and there's a trickle-down effect.
I am saddened and shocked at how insensitive I was in that interview with Rachel Lindsay. And I didn't speak from my heart, and that is to say I stand against all forms of racism, and I am deeply sorry. I'm sorry to Rachel Lindsay, and I'm sorry to the black community.
As a white man who has had privileges that others could not depend on or take for granted, I've clearly had advantages over the course of my life.
The silence is the biggest crime that white guys like me and the rest of us are doing. Staying silent. We need to say something. We need to keep saying something. And we need to stop saying that's not okay more than just one day on Twitter. I realized I needed to get educated about how to stop the silence.
Look at them apologizing for being who they are. Some of the stuff sounds fine, but taken together, I think it's a problem. I really do. Because it's not just a one-off interview. This is a whole campaign run by the left, but again, it's affecting everybody else now.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility. I take responsibility. Black people are being slaughtered in the streets, killed in their own homes. These are our brothers and sisters, our friends, our family. We are done watching them die. We are no longer bystanders. We will not be idle. Enough is enough.
I will no longer allow an unchecked moment. I will no longer allow racist, hurtful words, jokes, stereotypes, no matter how big or small, to be uttered in my presence.
So this virtue signaling has been going on for about a year now, and they're doing it really to enhance their own position. And you can hear it for yourself. They're exaggerating the issue, distorting it. This is not the country that you and I live in. But as they virtue signal, this is now starting to affect, a year in, regular working people. I want to tell you about this bus driver in Louisiana. Now, we don't have a name of the driver yet, but a driver was fired because of, well, a comment, a matter, I believe, of free speech. It was covered by a local news station in St. Bernard Parish down in Louisiana, and we're going to break down that report for you.
Ma, the bus driver said something to me that was racist.
The sixth grader told his mom that the bus driver scolded him after his face mask slipped below his nose. He told his mom he was out of breath after running to catch the bus. Gabriel recounted what the driver said.
Since George Floyd, that's what y'all all say, but I don't see a knee on your neck. I'm like, are you sure she said that? He said, yeah, all the kids on the bus heard it.
Not only did other kids hear the George Floyd comment, but it was recorded on the bus's onboard camera.
No, I have no issue or qualm with the mother. Everybody stands by their kids no matter what. I'm thinking about the bus driver now. The story goes on.
She tried to make my son feel like he is not supposed to be where he was. And, you know, just don't make him feel inferior. He's not inferior to nothing. He's just as equal as any one of those students on that bus.
Of course he is, but I'm not quite sure what she thinks happened. A little bit more.
The superintendent could not reveal whether the driver was fired or resigned because it's a personnel matter, but she did have some strong things to say. In a telephone interview, Vautier said, quote, "She no longer works for our school system. I can't defend that. I don't condone that. What she said is offensive and inappropriate. It was racially insensitive, and we took appropriate action."
And Vautier said she was especially sensitive to the matter because the Chauvin trial was in full swing whenever the driver made that offensive comment.
All right, and they went on. They put out a statement saying what the driver said is not in line with their values, do not reflect the values of our school district. Primarily, though, this is a bus driver, and bus drivers, as you know, have it tough. I used to be a kid on a bus. I gave the bus driver a hard time, all right? It's always pandemonium in the back of the bus. And bus drivers, they're under scrutiny. They got a camera basically in every single bus, and they had a camera on this bus. This is not that bus in question, but you've seen these kinds of images before. Now, back to the kid and what was actually said or not said. The kid said he couldn't breathe because of the mask. Is that how he put it? As simply as that? I'm not so sure. I'd like to know more, okay? Because I can't breathe is different from an issue with your mask. I can't breathe has become a political mantra, right? I mean, we've all heard it.
I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
So back to that little kid. Did he say, I can't breathe with a loaded message, or was it just, I can't breathe because of my mask? And the bus driver, were they reacting possibly to a politically charged message? Did they possibly just not say the exact right thing as the entire country is talking about race more controversially than ever before? So a bus driver didn't say exactly the right thing and now has been terminated. Is that right? Is that reasonable? Are bus drivers trained in what to say and not say? Are you? Am I? Not really. We're all just trying to figure this out, right? Right? A lot of strange things are going on. And some uncomfortable things are being mentioned by both sides. I'd like to show you a tweet from Denise McAllister, a noted conservative thinker. Dear white, straight Christian men, you are being systemically erased. This is only the beginning, but it's happening even on TV. Now you're not allowed to be seen unless accompanied by a gay or a black person, particularly a black woman. Now, that may seem pretty shocking, pretty offensive even, but maybe there's something to it. Have you been watching these shows lately in the mainstream media? Have you seen many white men talking to you by themselves? It doesn't add up that way, right? Because right now in America, being white, and especially being a man, is just not seen as very cool, very hip, very woke, or very chic.
As a white man who's walked through with life pretty damn easy.
As a white man who walks through life with that privilege, walk in these shoes, walk in these communities.
Yeah, of course, all lives matter. But as a white guy, I've never felt that my life didn't matter. I've never been pulled over for driving while white.
I can't control my situation as a white man, but I do owe a little bit, I owe a little bit back for people who didn't have the same opportunities that I had.
For elite politicians and entertainers, this is great. This is the kind of language that's going to keep you in that elite status. But when they talk like that, what happens at the bus depot? Strange things, and people being held possibly to unreasonable standards. You know, one of my favorite paintings growing up, yes, it's cornball, I'm told, not sophisticated, Norman Rockwell, The Four Freedoms. This man standing up and saying his piece. Kind of looks like Abraham Lincoln. This one was The Freedom of Speech by Norman Rockwell. Happens to be, I didn't notice this as a kid, maybe that's my privilege, but everybody in this picture is white. Well, some artists, especially woke hipster artists, don't think that's very cool, and there's been a campaign to revamp all of this. Just like Denise McAllister said, look at this again. Everybody white is being erased from the version of what America should be. I think we're all involved, don't you? Shouldn't we be? That brings us to Dante Wright. So only certain people can participate in this conversation, and if you are, there are only certain things you can say. Now, Dante Wright. So the 20-year-old Dante Wright, his funeral was yesterday. You know by now that he was shot by cops, mistakenly so. The funeral was on the scale of a head of state with civil rights leaders speaking that Daunte Wright had never met. So you can't talk about certain things in this case. You can't talk about the African-American cop who was in the process of arresting Daunte Wright. You certainly can't talk about Daunte Wright's criminal past or how he'd like to spend at least some of his free time, rolling around the neighborhood with a joint and a gun. You just can't say certain things these days. Why is that? It's affecting everything. Even straight media reports. Somehow they're apologizing for where they come from and highlighting it. I want to show you something. This is Ms. Yukis from CBS News. I really didn't pay too much attention. She did a pretty solid job covering the trial of Officer Chauvin. But at the end of a month's worth of coverage, she somehow had to kind of explain herself.
The reality has set in of there's a lot more work to do. I want to bring in Nia, my producer, who has been with me this entire time. And I think we have to start having really difficult conversations with one another. And you and I have, and I appreciate that. But I think that's where this community is at. I was with my family last night, and we were talking about how there's just so much more work to do, especially here in Minnesota. This county in particular is 80% white. So it's seeking out other people and talking to them and making sure that you're having the conversations of what do we do next. And I think that's the reality that's set in over the last couple of days.
You know, that's probably fine. And everyone's a little bit awkward when it comes to talking about race. I'm not sure a community 80% white or 80% black, if that's a bad thing. Somehow I think that that's the drift I was getting a little bit. Who knows? But we have to have an honest and open and forthright conversation, not the phony, stilted, and politically motivated one the left wants us to have.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.